Hi, Aarti. Great to have you here with us on Network Capital. How are you today? You were telling me it's freezing in Bombay.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, for Bombay standards, not for any other standards, but I feel like psychologically, because Bombay never gets cold, even if it gets slightly chilly, everyone has their sweaters out. So, but no, thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited for the session ahead.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the journey of Taali and how did you decide to venture into this foxnut space?
Yeah, for sure. So, my husband and I actually started Taali together. We're a husband and wife team, and we started Taali after we graduated from business school. So we both were at HPS, and honestly, being entrepreneurs or starting something on our own really wasn't on the cards. We both were doing different things. But we kind of realized that having lived in the US for a really long time, through undergrad, kind of working there and business school as well, we realized that, in the US, most snacks were really fatty, very highly processed, right? And made mainly from ingredients like potato, corn, refined flour.
Right.
And we look back to our childhood where, there are so many great ingredients in India that taste great, are good for you, have a lot of different properties, and could be great snacks for anyone and everyone, right? Not only Indians. And I feel like a lot of Indian ingredients and Indian snacks kind of get cubby holed into just catering to Indians, right?
Sure.
Versus they can be a lot more diverse and international. So that was also around the time where, in India itself, the popularity of makhana or fox nuts, was really growing in its kind of ready to eat form. And we
Hmm.
wanted to really take that ingredient and make it mainstream in the US, right? Where, like, if things like quinoa, chickpeas, all these kind of ingredients that are not quintessentially American, right, can be mainstream, why can't Indian ingredients? And that was the whole thought process kind of behind launching makhana in the US. We call it water lily pops in the US, and that's because it's made from the seed of a water lily plant. So
Hmm.
and otherwise, except for Indians, people wouldn't understand what makhana is. So that's kind of what we called it there, and we decided to launch it there to kind of introduce the international audience with this snack, and its Ayurvedic properties and its long history that it has in India. So we sell it in the US now. Kind of, it sits next to any of your mainstream snacks like kale chips and like quinoa snacks and chickpea snacks
Right.
and things.
That's fascinating. Why did you go to HBS and walk us through a bit of your career before that? Because
Yeah.
you mentioned that entrepreneurship wasn't really on your radar.
Yeah, so I grew up in Mumbai. Went to the University of Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia for my undergrad. Did engineering there, so very good, like Indian girl doing engineering. And after that, actually did consulting. So I was working at the Boston Consulting Group. Did a bunch of different things there. Worked in retail after that. So I was working in retail in India with a bunch of international brands and growing their business here. And kind of decided to go to business school, because having an engineering background, I thought that was like the best next step, right, to really get that kind of educational grounding, when it comes to kind of business principles. And of course, HBS being famous for, the case method, I thought it would be the most practical and best way to kind of study business. So it was my top choice. And my husband and I got married before we went to business school, and luckily both of us got into HBS, which worked out well. And he also has a similar background to where he did a bunch of different things, consulting, worked at Geo, kind of grew the Geo business, kind of before Geo was launching, and worked on all that. And then while we were at HBS, I worked in VC, he worked in private equity. So, kind of worked with companies, but never really thought of starting something on our
Hmm.
own. But then when this idea really came about, right, and we thought, wow, this could be something great, and we wanted to kind of make India proud in some sense, and kind of wanted to take this ingredient there, and we thought it would be a great idea, and decided to do it and do it together.
That's fascinating. So, this idea occurred to both of you while you were students at HBS.
Yeah.
What were the
It was
initial conversations like?
mainly because so we used to, I'm a big foodie, and we used to really many every time we kind of came home, I would carry like a bunch of snacks from here, and I had carried makhana. As I told you, that was when makhana was becoming kind of popular, in its like ready to eat form here as well, and not just something that you eat at home, right?
Right.
And I used to carry it back, and I made a lot of our friends there try it, a lot of our friends, a lot of our professors, and they all were actually very fascinated with what it was, right? And we're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, it tastes so good, and you're saying like it's healthy, and all those aspects. So people's reaction kind of to the product was really what, got us kind of thinking one day, being like, it would be such a great idea to launch this. And it's not like the base taste of it in itself is like very Indian or anything, right? Like popcorn, it takes on a lot of like flavors. And when we launched it in like flavors like white cheddar and like sriracha spice, right? Things that anyone would be used to eating, and love. And we thought that popcorn being such a massive kind of category unto itself in the US, right? This is kind of your better for you version of popcorn. So we always like to call it popcorn 2.0. So it has that same feeling, but doesn't have. We say it has about 70% less fat, 20% less calories, and about 50% more protein than popcorn. So it was a great alternative.
Yeah. I'm a big Makhana champion, so great to see a friend build a company this way.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Arti, tell me, was it hard to let go of the VC job or the private equity job in your husband's case? And were you guys doing, hey, in one case seems like a secure career path, the other is slightly uncertain? And I'll tell you why I'm asking this. Just 2 days back, we sent out a newsletter which asked our community members to differentiate between what is dangerous and what is risky, based on a
Right.
life of a person who worked at a Boston consulting group, Jim Cook, who basically set up the Sam Adams beer. So I was
Right.
very interested in getting the dangerous versus risky perspective from your point of view.
Yeah. So, Aditya and I, we discussed this a bunch, right, before we decided to kind of jump in. Because in our case, kind of being husband and wife doing it together, it's like all your eggs in one basket, right? And we were like, okay, is this a kind of smart thing to do? But we, were pretty kind of confident, of the idea, and obviously wanted to put in our kind of best and 100% to make sure that we make it succeed. And more than anything else, right? Like at the end of the day, for us, this was, if we ever wanted to do something like this, it was the best time, right, for us to
Hmm.
take that risk and do it. And luckily, we were fortunate enough that we have, a strong kind of educational background, where we thought that, okay, fine, after say a year or two, we think that this is not working out, we always have that option to kind of go back, and find ourselves a job with this, kind of entrepreneurial experience that we have kind of on our resume. But if there is one time, that was the best time, right? We were young, we didn't have kids, nothing. This was, this is our first
Hmm.
baby, and literally we thought that it was the best time to kind of plunge and take the risk, and kind of be thankful of our kind of educational background that we had as a backup.
Right. Was there an inner voice telling you that this will be an adventurous path? Everything wasn't figured out, but you said you were confident about that. Walk us through that confidence. Why? One is, of course, the insurance policy of education, but what else about the idea or the product or the market really excited you?
Yeah, so I think that the whole challenge was kind of introducing new kind of innovative products, right? And I think that was the challenge, and that was the kind of exciting part. We were confident of our idea, yes, because we thought it was a great idea. But I think that every founder who starts is kind of confident of their idea. Now, of course, it really depends what pans out, but you only really end up like, taking the plunge and starting it if you think it's a good idea. So, the whole fun and the whole challenge was to, kind of make people aware of this ingredient that they don't really know about. And I think a little bit of it was also the whole, like, like patriotism behind it, right? Where you're taking
Okay.
something that is, a part of your country, right, that only grows in India, and really introducing it to the world, right? And I think that was also a really, like, proud kind of thing for us, that we were trying to do. So that was also part of it. So yeah, it's been great. Of course, challenging journey like it is for every entrepreneur, with its ups and downs, but no complaints.
Awesome. So you graduated from HBS, and what did you do? Tell us about the first 100 days of Taali foods.
Yeah, so when it's funny because, like, when you decide, okay, like, this is what you want to do, and you kind of want to want to start a business, but don't really have like an on not done this before, right? So it was literally Aditya and I, like, sitting, I remember, like, around this, like, conference table and being like, okay, now where do we start, right? Because there are so many different things that you have to do that you've never done before, like even small things like, basic hygiene things, like incorporating a company, like figuring out the structure, like, okay, we know we want to do makhana as the ingredient. How are we going to source it, right? How do we make sure it's sustainable? How do we make sure we're able to scale it? Get the right manufacturing partner, right? Looking at branding, looking at packaging. It's all, you really have to be like the master of all trades at that point, right? Because it was just a two-person team, just both of us, figuring all of it out. So it was really fun. It was very exciting, and it was, every day was a challenge, right? Because it wasn't like a structured job where you go in and you know, like, what to expect. And it was also very different from a job in the sense as, normally, like, when you're doing a job, you're reporting into someone, especially at that age, and you have a lot of that direction, right, and structure to your day. But here it's completely on you. You have to figure it out on your own, and really kind of go through that. But it was really great. It was exciting. We went through kind of every step of the process, and we realized that at the end of the day, what really works is persistence, right? You just
Hmm.
kind of keep going on and figuring it out. And we realized that every problem has a solution, right? You just have to kind of try and put in the effort, figure it out, and move ahead. So yeah, we incorporated the company. We figured out our manufacturing, our sourcing, kind of worked on the branding, the brand name, which, of course, it's like naming your child. So you just, like, go through, you
Hmm.
went through like 200 different names, like trying to figure out what is best. And then we really kind of finally, when once I remember, we were in the US, we were driving back from a food expo. We went there to kind of see and learn the industry. And I remember it was Aditya's idea, and we were driving, and he was like, "How about Taali, like high five?" And that was one name that was just like resonated with us so much, and we were like, in that second, we were like, "This is it, right? I think this is what we should do." It's a pleasant sounding word, right? It means high five, which is perfect, and it also, sounds good for people who don't know what it means, right? A lot of people in the US wouldn't know what it means, and because we want to build a brand that is functional, that's good for you. Tali for us is like a celebration of finding that perfect snack, right? That you can really kind of eat and, like, want to give a high five. And therefore, the name was perfect. And if you see our logo as well, like, the two A's are giving each other a high five.
I love the logo. I actually study logos carefully. I designed the network capital logo myself, put it on a
Oh,
pen.
amazing. So did you notice the two A's?
I did. I did.
Okay, great.
And
And then
actually,
people went one step further, saying, which was not intentional, but people went one step further, saying, "Oh, the two A's are like you and Aditya giving each other a high five." And I was like, "Oh, wow, I didn't think of it in that way." Sure.
well, that's poetic, yeah. Talking of you and Aditya, we hosted an INSEAD professor, Jennifer Petri on our podcast. And
Right.
she's written a book and written lots of papers about couples that work. Now, you
Right.
are a couple that it's clearly working. Tell us
Yeah.
about how did you set boundaries? How did you decide to work with each other? Was there anything hard about it?
For sure. So, I'm not going to kind of paint like a poetic picture being like this. It's not
Hmm.
challenging and it's not hard at all. It definitely is. But I think for us, one advantage I think was that we actually met when we were undergrad. So we both studied engineering
At
together.
Penn,
And
yeah.
at Penn, yeah. So we were in the same major. That's how we met. And we went through kind of engineering together. We did HBS together as well. So in that sense, we had some background of like not working together, but like we had seen each other like study and like go through projects and kind of things like that. So we kind of understood each other's working style from earlier on. And also I think kind of what worked really well was the fact that we complement each other, right? Our strengths in that sense were always different, which is why we were able to kind of now kind of segregate our responsibilities also as per our strengths, right? Which has worked well. Like I look into the entire kind of sales, distribution, marketing, that entire piece that there works on, the finance, the operations, supply chain, that entire piece. So we kind of played to our strengths,
Hmm.
which worked well. But I think in terms of maintaining boundaries, etc., at the end of the day, right, when you have decided to kind of jump into the entrepreneurship life, so to speak, there
Hmm.
are really no boundaries, right, in that sense. So sure, we tried, but we did realize that it is important for us to make sure that we give this priority. For us, it's our
Hmm.
first baby. We have a
Hmm.
baby now, but Taali is still our first baby.
Yeah.
So we of course tried to make sure that we at least have dinner sometimes, like without talking about work and things like that. But at the end of the day, it is inevitable, right? So it is a choice that you have to be okay with, at least for the first few years, when you're trying to figure stuff out and there aren't really even like specific roles that you have, right? And in
Hmm.
the beginning, now we have defined roles. In the beginning, we both were doing everything, right? So it's not like we weren't coming into each other's hair all the time. We were, but that's there are pros and cons, right? And there are a lot of pros, and these are some of the cons. And sometimes I would always be like, oh my God, we're doing this all the time. And when people would ask Aditya this, and this is something that I remember him saying, which I thought was really sweet. He was like, but this is one more thing that I can share with my wife, right?
Hmm.
Which was sweet, right? If I think the couple doesn't mind that, and it's something that you're able to use as a strength rather than a weakness, I think that then it works.
Yeah.
Which how we have been able to do. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Based on what you've said, I think I know, but I still need to ask. My next book is on the passion economy, and it just happens that one segment is on couples that work and are building interesting stuff in the passion economy. As it turns out, that either building together brings you closer or it actually throws you
Right.
apart. When you
Exactly.
reflect so far on the journey of you and Aditya, what do you think is the answer? And tell us a bit more why is whatever your answer is.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's definitely brought us closer. There's no doubt about that, and I think that that's because, one, of course, we spend a lot more time together, which is
Right.
which is one, right. But I
Yeah.
think the more important piece is, right, that you really see the person in all aspects of life, right? You see you're with the person as a spouse, as a friend, as your co-founder, as your boss. Sometimes like we both kind of boss around each other in different things, right? And in different ways, and you really see all different like facets of the person. And I think that that just kind of makes your relationship stronger. And as I said, as what I was saying earlier, right, you have to look at it in a positive way. Only if you do and use it as your strength, only then really can you make sure that it's bringing you closer and not causing issues in your personal life. And I
Right.
think that that's something that we've tried to be cognizant of, at least to the best of our ability so far.
Right. Yeah. Um, Tell me a bit about the product development. We on Network Capital got a lot of questions when we announced that we were hosting one of the co-founders of Taali. How
Yeah.
did you go about that? How did you divide responsibilities? Tell us about the sourcing, the packaging, the thought process, all of it.
Yeah, for sure. So, as I was saying, of course, this is like a Indian based ingredient which we were launching in the US at the time. No one had really heard about it, right? So a lot of the problem we were trying to solve, right, even before we go into how we're going to distribute it and kind of where it's going to be available, was more about how can the packaging, one, be like attractive that people really want to, lift it from the shelf and really see what it is. And secondly, it has to be something that is, in a very easy way, be informative, right? Because
Mm,
you're trying to tell the customer this is something new. And of course, in a grocery store, the customer kind of attention is very, very tiny and very quick. They'll look at the bag and put it back if it's not interesting. So what we were really trying to do is really compare it to something that people are used to eating, right? So
mm,
what we say on our packaging for our US packaging is we say that it has, as I was saying, like 67% less fat than popcorn, or
mm,
50% more protein than popcorn, 20% less calories than popcorn, really comparing it to something that is part of that customer's everyday life.
right.
Right, because otherwise packaging just gets cluttered, where there are the world of call outs that you can kind of put on there, right? But you have to make sure that you're kind of sifting through what is important and what is really going to get conversion. We also made sure that the product was kind of, front and center in the packaging, because again, it's something people haven't seen before, right?
Right.
So you need to make sure that customers say, okay, this is how it looks, right? And lastly, what we tried to do was, make sure that the packaging and branding, right, when you see it, you will know that it should kind of stand out, right? So at least on our makhana that we had launched in the US, we have this like Taali like pattern going on, a lot of different colors, right? And a lot of that to kind of, make sure it pops on the shelf,
Mm,
right? That piece was really important. So that's kind of a little bit about the branding and packaging piece. In terms of the product, as I said, we wanted to make sure that, okay, since this is a new ingredient, we wanted to introduce it in flavors that were innovative, but also some flavors that were safe, right? That people are
mm,
used to eating. That's why we went down the route of like a Himalayan pink salt, right? Which is like your twist on your classic salted.
mm,
Or, we did a white cheddar, as I said, because everyone eats like, cheese popcorn. So that
right.
worked. We did the sriracha spice, because sriracha as a sauce is like something that was kind of blowing up, and everyone knows what it is now. So the sriracha spice worked really well. We also have a flavor called tangy turmeric, and that was, now turmeric in general globally, right? For us it's just haldi, but globally is like become so hot. Everyone's having like turmeric lattes and turmeric water, and everyone's kind of realizing the benefits of it.
Yeah.
Realizing the benefits of it. So we were like, okay, like a turmeric flavor that actually tastes good is something that, people would love for like their turmeric fix for the day,
Right.
so that's how we thought of like, things that are kind of on trend, but also, safe when it comes to introducing a new product. We then went on to introducing few sweet flavors as well, which were interesting. So makhana as an ingredient, everyone might not know, but it works really well, savory and sweet. So we
Yeah.
even launched in the US. We have like a cinnamon vanilla flavor and like a cookie crunch flavor, which is also done really well for us. But that's how we went around, kind of like figuring out what kind of products we want to launch when it comes to makhana as an ingredient.
Got it. Got it. And now that the product is launched, the first 100 days are there. How do you think about financing? I would imagine that both you and Aditya had worked in the industry, so you would have connects. You went to a wonderful business school, so you would have had options there. But you decide to go for an accelerator model. Talk to us about that. And when you look back, was it the right call?
Yeah, so we were part of Y Combinator about 2 years ago, and honestly, it was a great experience. It was amazing, and looking back, I would definitely not change anything. We were kind of privileged in that sense that YC wanted, they don't do too many consumer businesses. They're pretty selective on that. So that was really reassuring that they really saw potential in us as founders and, in what we were kind of trying to
Hmm.
build. And I think that was a great experience, kind of building out, speaking to and meeting so many people who've scaled, massive businesses like, Dropbox and Gmail, and like so many,
Hmm.
massive businesses that we all kind of look back on and, are proud of. And I think that that's definitely something that worked well for us. And we thought that it would be a great kind of stepping stone in terms of, also kind of raising our kind of pre-seed round that we did post YC.
Hmm.
So it was great, no regrets at all. And I think that, one advice that I would give is, a lot of startups kind of, apply to these accelerators and then think that, it's like the be all and end all, right? Like if you don't get in, then like that's it. And then you're just going to fail. That's definitely, of course, it has a lot of advantages, but I would tell, every founder that it's, it's not the only thing that's going to make your business.
Hmm.
And it's something that you should look at. If it happens, great, take advantage of it. If not, there are a lot of other things you can do to scale your business and really kind of get the word out there and get the network out there. So I think that that's definitely something I would want to kind of leave behind when it comes to the whole like accelerator piece
Yeah.
as well.
I couldn't agree more. Like Network Capital is backed by the Facebook Community Accelerator. And in our case, we love the fact that Facebook is supporting us.
Right.
But we would have continued to build, even without the accelerator,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah. For
And I
sure.
think that way, Aarti, you and I aligned on how we think about fundraising. But I'm really curious to hear your story of what does fundraising mean to you, and what does business sustainability mean when it comes to Taali?
Yeah, so I think that for us, right, then I've always been very cognizant of the fact that we want to build Tali in a sustainable way. Of course, fundraising is inevitable when you want to build a brand, right? Because at the end of the day, to build a brand, to create distribution, to build brand equity, to build your team, right? It's very tough to be able to do it and build like a CPG brand without that. But we were always very cognizant of the fact that we want to balance it out, right? Yes, we
Hmm.
want to raise capital and have that, but we also want to burn it in a sustainable way, right? And not go down the path which, of course, different things work for different people, but a lot of
Hmm.
startups nowadays kind of go down that route where you're just like this fundraising machine, right? Then and then if you don't kind of get your next step of fundraising, you're just about to die, right? And that's not the way we want to build it. We want to make sure at least our unit economics are positive, right? Which they are. Which at the end of the day, sure, if we ever have to kind of scale back on like marketing and branding and those kind of things, and we don't have the funding, God forbid, then at least the business is not going to die, right? And that's really how we are thinking about it, because I think there is merit in kind of building a brand and really, if you want to build a brand that's going to kind of be bigger than you, right, and last beyond you, I think it's important to really build it in a sustainable way, going forward.
Absolutely. And this is such precious advice, right? Like making a company successful and raising funds for the company, burning cash versus, building a sustainable business. These are questions that founders need to answer for themselves, but it helps to have other examples along the way.
No, definitely, I couldn't agree more.
I met you first in 2017, Aarti, and it's been 5 years since we first met. Can you pick out three of the most defining moments when it comes to Tali's journey? They don't need to be good or bad. It can be anything. Like three important moments that made your business anti-fragile.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that, to kind of start off with, right, when it comes to like defining moments for us, right, as founders, because all founders have, you have your good days, you have your bad days, you have your ups and downs, and you really need to kind of, keep the ball rolling to, to move forward and not let those kind of paths hold you back, right? And I think one of the most, proud and satisfying moments for us when we kind of look back and thought that this is all worth it, right, was when our product was like on the shelf at Whole Foods,
Mm,
in the US. And I remember we went and like visited one of the stores and kind of saw our product on the shelf. And we were like, this is just the best feeling. It was the most amazing feeling. And I think the second thing that comes to mind for me would be once when on our kind of email ID through our website, right, we got an email from a mom who whose daughter had a lot of different like allergies, and was always couldn't really like eat anything or eat snacks that like her friends would eat in school,
mm,
and always felt very left out and just like was had a little bit of depression about that. And because our product is so, I mean, it has Ayurvedic properties, it doesn't have like it's free from all allergens basically, right? It doesn't have corn, it
mm,
doesn't have gluten, it doesn't have any of those. And she was so excited to like have finally found a snack for her daughter, that her daughter can also take to school and like enjoy with the rest of her friends. That was such a touching kind of moment for
mm,
us, where like we're so glad that we can, because sitting back, you're selling the product, you don't realize that it's actually touching the lives of people, right? And when you kind of get a little bit of glimpse of that, it really kind of makes it all worth it. So I think that would definitely be the second. And then I think the third for us, I think, would be the fact that we have such a vision in mind for making Taali like your next generation snack brand, right? Like we always
mm.
like to say we want to be like a Frito-Lay 2.0, right? And that's one of the reasons why we kind of launched in India as well, which I can throw light on, later in our conversation. But I think just the fire that we have to really make snacks better, right? And to really show our consumers that something that tastes great, right, that gives you the fun and the excitement of like a great tasting snack or product, can also give you something more, right, can also be healthy. It doesn't have to be like super fried, doesn't have to be made from like terrible ingredients, and it can still be something you love, that you're eating. And that was the challenge, I think, that actually keeps us going, right, to make sure that we're constantly innovating and make sure that we're really kind of getting the best out there, even in terms of R&D, to our customers.
It was fascinating. Um, when you look at the way Tali has grown, how did you choose distribution? Are you a D2C brand?
So we definitely do sell from our website, and we do sell to the consumer. So in that sense, sure, we're a D2C brand. But in the definition of like, are we a pure D2C business, that the way people look at D2C today, I would say no, that's not our priority, and it's not our focus,
Hmm,
because what we realized, between whether it is India and or the US, right, majority of grocery sales in any of these geographies, right, still come from the grocery store, right, still
hmm,
come from like impulse purchases in the store. And
hmm,
yes, while it's like really in right now to be like, oh, everything should be D2C, and like that's really what you need to build and that's really what you need to grow, yes, it's something that we are definitely doing. But is that all I'm doing? No, because is that where my growth and scale is going to come from? No, because from the sheer like percentage of where our customers buying snacks today, it is in the store, right, or it is
hmm,
on, say, kind of grocery channels, or like the whole like q-commerce space that has quick commerce that has come up, whether in the US
hmm.
with companies like GoPuffs and things like that are massive, or in India with kind of Swiggy's Instamart and stuff. Sure, I think that those are kind of sustainable models to get directly to the customer for a brand like ours, and it works well for us. But I think in terms of otherwise pure scale and reach to the customer, brands shouldn't forget that retail is here to stay, right? Even in a very kind of advanced, sophisticated market like the US, stores like Whole Foods, grocery stores like Whole Foods are adding stores like every few weeks, right? So sure, even online and D2C and e-commerce is growing there, but retail is still, in-store retail is still massive. And just because a lot of people are kind of running behind the whole D2C space, I think we should forget where a massive part of the growth is coming from as well, and what customer behavior really is when it comes to food especially. So I think that when people do think about D2C, I think you should not just kind of like run with it just because that's what people are doing. I think it's important to know, is this the right thing to focus on for your brand, right? Or for
Right.
your product. And I think that is super important.
Yeah. I can imagine seeing your product in Whole Foods would have been a pretty wild experience.
It was
Um,
it was amazing.
yeah. But do you want to tell our community members why you chose the US as the starting point, and how are you thinking about expansion? Where, if anywhere, does India fit in?
Yeah, for sure. So, as I mentioned, we had originally, like, the whole thought process was, right, to take these Indian ingredients and really launch them there. And Makhana was, the focus, and is the focus for the US to kind of grow the ingredient there. But while we were kind of, growing the business, we always had in, like, we wanted to launch in India at some point. And with the pandemic, right, and we ended up spending a lot more time here as well in India during the pandemic. And we kind of realized that India is now where the US really was about 10-15 years ago, right? When it comes to food, people are getting a lot more aware about what they're eating, right? What they're consuming, what they're putting in their body, looking at, like, the nutrition label, looking at the ingredients that are there. And I think this is only kind of been expedited with the pandemic, right? When people are getting, using Netflix and the internet, and there's just so much information available that people are a lot more aware. And we realize that this is not the only 0.001% of premium customers in India. It's also people who are in, like, tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? Who are really well aware of a lot of these facts and want new and innovative products. And we realize that this is that best time, right? The US kind of went through this cusp 10-15 years ago, when massive brands like RX Bar and Kind and Skinny Pop, that are like billion-dollar brands, kind of came up at that time, when the customer behavior was changing in this similar way, right? And we realized that that's what's happening here right now. And we really want to kind of provide the Indian consumer with something different and something new. And our whole, as I was telling you earlier, our whole ethos of our brand is taking products that customers love and, like, making them better, right? Which is why we launched in India about 6 months ago. So, fairly recently, we launched with, of course, our makhana, because, everyone knows and loves makhana here, as well. And we have, cool and different flavors, and we are having all natural products. So that's doing really well. But one of the products that, is kind of a large part of our business right now is something that we launched called protein puffs, right? And if you
Hmm.
think about that, it'll remind you of, like, the cheese balls we grew up eating, right?
Right.
And but it's not fried. It has, no maida in it. It is, something that tastes, I mean, I think it tastes as good, but maybe I am biased. I think it tastes better, but maybe I am biased. But I think that the product has really scaled brilliantly, that wood in India, and customers love it because it gives you the same great taste, right? But also gives you something more. Like, our one bag of protein puffs gives you 10 grams of protein, right? And India is a very protein deficient country in that sense.
Hmm.
And people realize that protein is important in their diet, but also don't really realize how to incorporate it in their diet, right? There are a lot of people who are vegetarian as well. And, products products like, whey protein and things like that, I think for the regular Indian consumer is a little bit intimidating, right? People always think that like you only have protein shake if you're like going to the gym and like building muscle
Hmm.
and things like that. And this is like a, our product is made from ingredients like chickpeas and dal and jowar and like things that you're used to eating, but when you taste it, like you can't tell, right? It tastes like any other delicious snack. So our whole goal is to kind of be your guilt-free indulgence, right, where it tastes great but it also gives you something more. So with the whole kind of protein angle that we have, we want to make sure that we are really helping the protein deficiency when it comes to India. And our product has been doing really well here. We are already in about 500 stores across the
Wow.
country, India, just in 6 months. So there's huge kind of untapped potential, and these are stores like that anyone and everyone shops at, right? Whether it's your Reliance stores, whether it's DMart, whether it's Spencer's, right? A lot of these kind of modern trade stores as well that we're in. And then of course your online channels like Big Basket and GeoMart and Amazon and things like that. And we really see a lot of growth potential here in India, not only for the two kind of products that we have right now, but a lot more as well. And we want to really show the customer that something that's good for you, right, or guilt free, doesn't have to be boring, right?
Hmm.
Because if you go to your regular like kirana store, right, you'd always see, and this is something that used to really bother me, because you always see like chips, and then you'll see diet chips, right? And or you'll see like some kind of like chivra or something, and then you'll see diet chivra, right? And the diet version always just looks like really sad and really like
Yeah.
like you're making like the biggest compromise ever because you're trying to be healthy, right? And that's what we wanted to take away from like guilt-free snacking, right? We want, if you see our packaging, right, even for our protein pass, it's really fun. It's as colorful as anything else, right? So we wanted to show the customer that like this tastes as good, but it's good for you, and that's the goal. So our, as I was saying earlier as well, the goal is really to build that like next generation snack brand, right? And I think India really has the potential, because if you go to any of your regular grocery stores today, I definitely think the snack aisle is very fatigued, right? There's not too much innovation going on. And I think that the customers and the masses, even in tier 2, tier 3 cities, are really looking for new and innovative products. So that's our goal, to launch new products as well, and launch things that people love, but make it something that they don't feel bad eating, right, but still love eating. So
You're fascinating. I would imagine that building and scaling a business in the US, a company like Taali, would be slightly different from doing the same in India. Could you walk us through some changes or differences in which the way you're operating?
yeah, for sure. So, for starters, I think the a large part of the difference in the US was also the fact that we were introducing a new ingredient there, right? So there's a lot of different kind of thought process that goes behind it. And the US, the way it works is in terms of what we call modern trade, right, which is your supermarkets, etc. There are a lot more in the US, right? It's a lot more kind of scattered in that sense, and because that market is many kind of years ahead of us, right? There are a lot more there, versus in India. In that sense, your whole kind of modern trade supermarket piece is a lot more consolidated, right? So and to a certain extent, I think that the US being the US, right, is definitely a lot more competitive as well, right? There are products kind of coming up left, right, and center. Not to say India is not, but I think that if you have a great quality product, with like a customer promise, I think kind of gaining distribution in India across a lot of these channels is possibly slightly faster in some sense, if you if of course you have product market fit, compared to the US, because it is a lot more scattered, right? And I think that when you look at the difference as well, I think that the US really went through that whole, progression of like, okay, in store continues to grow. Then, there are a lot of the online kind of marketplaces when it came to food. And that grew a lot for quite a few years. And then now it's the whole quick commerce piece, that's coming into the US and India. But India, I think, yes, there is a lot of the whole, grocery marketplaces, so to speak. But those are also just from a few years ago, right? So I feel like India and its distribution might, to a certain extent, skip one of the phases where it would be, of course, like the stores are super important, but then where we might see real growth, I think, going forward when it comes to impulse purchases like snack, I think, would be more from your whole quick commerce side of things. So, it's interesting to kind of see how, different countries and the world will kind of pan out in terms of, where the next kind of phase of growth is going to come from. But, as I said earlier as well, what is here to stay and what is common across all is, your in-store kind of grocery store, store business, which, people definitely shouldn't ignore.
Got it. I know you probably can't answer this question, but let me see if you can give us a flavor. When you look at your product plan for India, are there new surprises coming? How are you thinking about it? And what's your ultimate vision for India? What would be like the Whole Foods equivalent moment for India that either has already happened or you're waiting for?
It's definitely already happened. Seeing us in 500 stores across the country was, is amazing, and is something that we're really proud of and are thankful for every day. Most definitely, there are kind of new products in the pipeline. As I was saying earlier as well, our goal is to be your, next generation snack brand, right? Where we want to build products for customers that they don't feel guilty eating, love the taste of, right? Don't think they're making a compromise, but they're also providing, good things for the body, right? Things that aren't just empty calories. And, kind of based on that mission, that we have for Taali, is the way we're thinking about the new products as well, right? Kind of thinking through products that customers love, that they're used to eating, right? And thinking of innovative ways to make them better, right? Where they don't have to be just full of maida and oil and fat and sugar and things like that, but are made from better ingredients, but taste as good or better, as I
Yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah. I've been again for my second book. I've been studying a lot of these energy bars. I hope Tari considers launching at some point. It'll be fun.
Yeah, no, for sure, definitely.
So, Aarti, how did the pandemic impact Tali, and what were some lessons that you've learned that will probably set you up for future?
Yeah, so I think, like any other business, right? I think that no one was ready, right, for the pandemic. It's not something that you can plan for. It's not something that you can kind of preempt, right, in some sense. And it hit us like it hit most businesses. And we had, of course, certain plans for growth, because at that time when the pandemic hit, we hadn't launched in India. We were only selling in the US at the time. And for example, we had a massive food service business, right, in the US, which is basically a lot of your offices. So, like in Mountain View in California, Google has like a massive campus, Uber
Hmm.
has a massive campus, LinkedIn, so we were actually available at their campuses, and that was a massive part of our business as well. And that suddenly came to a standstill, right, because people weren't going to the office anymore. And of course, that hit us, in a massive way. Of course, kind of revenues went down, but even in terms of kind of production and planning, right, you plan for a lot of that, that scale and the products that are going to kind of get consumed there, which didn't happen, right? The whole world kind of came to a standstill. Even in terms of our in-store growth, right, I think that at that time in the US as well, like everywhere else, there was a frenzy, right? No one knew what was going on. Everyone was scared. There was panic buying, right? The grocery stores themselves didn't know how to kind of, operate and sustain it. So
Hmm.
understandably so, none of the grocery stores were taking on new products, right? Because that's not the priority. Keeping like toilet paper on the shelf is priority, and like, water and things like that are essentials. And of course it did, kind of hamper our kind of growth trajectory, right? But it taught us a lot, right? It taught us to kind of say, okay, fine, this is the situation we're in now, where what are other avenues through which, we can kind of find growth, right? So in the US, through the pandemic, we kind of onboarded ourselves onto a lot more online channels, right? And
Hmm.
did a lot more of that. Looked into a lot of these kind of quick commerce, businesses that I spoke to you about. And you have to just, as an entrepreneur, I think that there will be curveballs right along the way, and I think it's just how you kind of navigate them and use them, to kind of come up with new innovative solutions. And that's kind of really what we did, right? Even launching in India was something that we did in the pandemic, right? We
Hmm.
launched in July of this past year. And that itself had its challenges, right? No one, in that sense, ever thought there would be like a pseudo third wave that there is right now, right? So you just have to be nimble, I think. As a startup, you have to be nimble. You have to kind of, try and figure things out along the way, and such things are out of anyone's control, right?
Yeah.
So that was a lot of our learning, right, in terms of making sure that, we are kind of growing in a way where if we have to change strategy, at some point we have to be able to be nimble in the way to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was figuring out the story of Dang Foods. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. It's
So,
a snack brand
yeah.
in the US. They were mentioning the same thing that almost overnight, all the B2B sort of business went away
Yeah,
for their
Dang was
company.
also available at the Google's Mountain View campus, like the way we were.
Yeah,
So, yeah, a lot of businesses, got hit, and that's just, what it was. We, at least in that some sense, should be thankful that it's food, right? People were still consuming food. Sure, the growth was less, but compared to other kind of industries, like whether it is, airlines, hotels, like tourism, travel, which got hit so badly. I think in that sense we should be thankful that we weren't as badly hit as they were. And I'm just hoping for this to kind of pass. It's already been almost 2 years since we've been dealing with the pandemic. So I think, for everyone, I really hope that this passes, and we're at the end, so life can go back to normal soon.
for sure. Um, just like the final bit before I let you go is about your personal productivity. The pandemic like has thrown lots of curveballs to you, and your co-founder, your husband.
Yeah.
You've had a baby now, so
Yeah.
you have your second baby. The first was Taali, the
Yes.
second is with
Yes.
you. How are you managing your energy? Like, how have you structured or restructured your day so that you're able to bring your best as a founder, as a wife, as a mom, etc.?
Yeah. No, honestly, that's a great question. I think that, it was definitely super challenging in the beginning, right? Because I think for everyone, we were so used to having that like really structured day, right? Like you go to work, like you're in the office, you're interacting with people, like you come back home, and then you say, okay, fine, I'm home. Let me take like, an hour or two off, like work out, do something, and then get back online, if needed. And that whole structure kind of overnight just like went for a toss, right? And for us, to your point, it was a lot more exaggerated because, yes, first of all, you were working from home, when there was no real, because at the end of the day, if you're working from home, you're not really going out, right? Then there's no boundary. You're just working 24 hours a day. And more so for us, because you were husband and wife working together, right? So it did kind of reach a point where it was this like just entire blur of like what is home, what is work, what is life, what is work, and there was like no there was no difference at all
Hmm.
in the beginning. And I remember seeing this like one thing on Instagram that was like, it's not work from home anymore, it's living at work, right? Which is literally like how it became, right? And I think that it really took some time to be able to come up with a routine again, and like some kind of a definition of like, okay, this is what life is going to be like for the next few months, right? And then really come up with a structure to be able to kind of be productive and build the day. Definitely did take time. And what I really tried to do was to make sure that since the whole like going out or meeting friends or a little bit of that kind of break time that was there for any human that needs it, right, wasn't there anymore because we were all locked in at home. I decided to kind of like build on what I enjoy doing, right? Like what
Hmm.
my kind of hobbies are. So I actually, like a lot of other people, cooked a lot, right, in the
Hmm.
pandemic. So I decided that, okay, I'm going to make this for dinner today. I'm going to try this out today. So then automatically I had to kind of, segregate like so much time out of work, being like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I think that, just introducing, I started doing, online, workouts, right, on YouTube. And, kind of introducing these things that I never really had time to do before, never really did, really helped define my day, right?
Hmm.
And helped me be more productive when it was like a living at work situation that I was in. So that really helped me.
Awesome. And it's been an absolute delight speaking with you and knowing you obviously for a long time and seeing Tali become what it is. I think we have hundreds and thousands of community members on Network Capital. They love the brand. Do you have any parting message or word of advice for anyone looking to start up, scale up, or rethink their career?
Yeah, so I think that one thing I would love to say is entrepreneurship is a real ride, right? There are ups and downs, there are great days, there are bad days, but you just have to be persistent, figure things out, and really kind of just move along. And as I said, there will be things that will happen. There will be days like how you might not get into the accelerator you wanted, or you might not get into the retailer you wanted, or whatever it may be. But those aren't things that you should think are things that are going to shut down the business, right? Things happen, and there are a lot of opportunities out there as long as you have conviction in your idea. Have a great team with you, whether it is your founder, whether it's like the immediate like small team that you build to start off with. I think just kind of having that conviction in your idea and the passion to kind of move forward is really the advice I would give. And lastly, I think not kind of getting sucked into your whole like buzzwords that people use, like D2C, or whatever it may be. I think every industry is different, every product is different, every business model is different. So do what works for your product, right? Do what works
Right.
for your business, do what works for your product, even though that might not be like the sexy thing to do at that point in time. And I think that's definitely one thing that I would the last thing I would like to kind of leave the listeners with.
Fascinating. Aarti, Tali will definitely be in Network Capital offices all around. Thanks so much for sharing this wonderful journey with us. I personally look forward to seeing you scale and build with sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was great. It was great being here. Thank you so much for the time, and it was a pleasure. Stay safe and be well.